San Antonio Spurs legend Gregg Popovich left a local restaurant in an ambulance Tuesday night after officials say they received a call for an elderly person who had fainted while eating dinner, TMZ Sports has learned. "We've obtained video of the 76-year-old on a stretcher as he was placed into the back of an emergency vehicle outside a San Antonio steakhouse around 8:20 p.m. Our sources tell us Popovich appeared to still be dealing with the effects of the mild stroke he suffered in early November while at the establishment, and was there for close to 2 hours before suffering the medical emergency. Officials say they responded to the scene after receiving a call for an elderly person who had fainted, and the patient was taken to the hospital with a non-life-threatening injury or illness. Another source tells us Pop was alert and talking by the time he entered the back of the vehicle, and he is now back home and doing better. Popovich has taken a step back from the Spurs to focus on his health, with assistant Mitch Johnson serving as interim head coach in his absence. It was announced in February he would not return this season. Popovich is widely considered one of the greatest basketball coaches of all time, leading the Spurs to 5 NBA Finals championships and Team USA to a gold medal at the 2020 Olympics in Tokyo. He is the winningest coach in NBA history. The scene was unsettling, to say the least. Those who witnessed it could not have known that the man they had seen coaching just months ago, orchestrating strategies and guiding a franchise that had been synonymous with success for decades, would be lying in the back of an ambulance hours later. The news spread quickly, as it often does in this social media age. But this wasn't the typical drama that social media thrives on. It wasn't about rumors or tabloid headlines. It was real. It was a deeply human moment, one that made even the most hardened basketball fans stop, reflect, and worry. For the vast majority of fans, Gregg Popovich has been a constant in their lives. Whether they were Spurs fans living and breathing every season or casual basketball observers, Popovich's influence on the game had always been undeniable. From the moment he became head coach of the San Antonio Spurs in 1996, the trajectory of the team, and of the NBA as a whole, changed forever. Under his guidance, the Spurs became one of the most successful franchises in sports history, known not only for their dominance on the court but for their commitment to developing players and maintaining a culture of excellence. He coached Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker, and a host of other legendary players. He molded them into champions, not just through their physical talent but by making them believe in the system, in each other, and in the team as a whole. Popovich is credited with revolutionizing the game in many ways, not just in terms of X's and O's, but also in terms of leadership and how players approach the game as professionals. His sharp wit, dry humor, and no-nonsense approach to coaching became the standard that so many other coaches in the league now aspire to emulate. But now, in this moment, that image of the hard-nosed coach with the impeccable discipline was juxtaposed against the reality of an aging man grappling with his health. This wasn't the Popovich the world was used to seeing. Popovich, who had once been a relentless force on the sidelines, a coach who never seemed to falter, now faced something entirely outside of his control. As the video spread across the internet, fans and media outlets alike began asking the same questions. What had happened? Was it related to his stroke earlier in November? And most importantly, how serious was this medical emergency? It wasn't long before the facts began to trickle out. Sources confirmed that Popovich had been inside the restaurant for nearly 2 hours before the incident occurred. He had been eating, interacting with people around him, and generally carrying on with his usual demeanor. There was nothing that seemed outwardly alarming about the situation until the fainting episode occurred. When the paramedics arrived at the scene, they were told the elderly person, Popovich, had fainted. Fainting is, of course, a relatively common occurrence in older individuals, but when it happens to someone who is already recovering from a mild stroke, the situation becomes more complicated. Popovich, ever the professional, was reportedly alert and responsive by the time the ambulance arrived. This, according to sources close to the scene, gave fans some comfort. He was talking, aware of his surroundings, and seemed to be in a stable condition. The decision was made to take him to the hospital, but officials were quick to emphasize that the injury or illness was not life-threatening. Though the news was reassuring, it was still a stark reminder of how fragile life can be. Here was a man who had spent decades coaching the best basketball players in the world, helping them to achieve greatness, pushing them to their limits, and yet here he was, a 76-year-old coach facing the realities of aging and health challenges. For many, this moment served as a reminder that Popovich was not just a coach but a human being with his own struggles, his own battles. In a world that often places public figures on pedestals, it was a sobering reminder of their mortality. Fans, former players, and colleagues alike reached out to offer their support, and the outpouring of well wishes was immediate. It was clear that Gregg Popovich had made an indelible mark not just on the world of basketball but on the lives of so many people who admired his leadership and character. In the days that followed, further reports indicated that Popovich was recovering at home. He had been discharged from the hospital and was resting, and although he was no longer directly involved with the day-to-day operations of the Spurs, his legacy loomed large over the team. It had been announced in February that Popovich would not be returning to coach the Spurs this season. After decades of service, he had decided to take a step back and focus on his health, and his absence from the sidelines was felt by fans and players alike. Popovich had already made the decision to step down from his duties for the time being, with assistant coach Mitch Johnson taking over as the interim head coach. Popovich's health was his priority, and the organization fully supported his decision. The Spurs had been navigating their future without their legendary coach, and while the team still carried his influence, it was clear that the man who had built the franchise into one of the most successful in NBA history was no longer going to be there in the same capacity. But even as he took a step back, the respect and admiration for Popovich continued to grow. His legacy as the winningest coach in NBA history was cemented long ago, and his influence extended beyond the court. He was not just a coach to the players. He was a mentor, a father figure, a teacher who imparted wisdom that went far beyond basketball. Many former players have credited Popovich with shaping their careers and their lives, teaching them valuable lessons about leadership, sacrifice, and discipline that they carried with them long after their playing days were over. It was no secret that Popovich's contributions to the sport were immeasurable. He had led the Spurs to 5 NBA championships, a remarkable feat by any standard. But perhaps even more impressive was the longevity of his success. He didn't just build a great team, he built a culture of excellence that has persisted for decades. The Spurs' commitment to teamwork, discipline, and mutual respect was a direct reflection of Popovich's leadership, and those values were instilled in every player who wore the Spurs jersey. In addition to his success with the Spurs, Popovich had also played a key role in Team USA's success on the international stage. Under his leadership, the United States won a gold medal at the 2020 Tokyo Olympics, further solidifying his place in the pantheon of great basketball minds. His impact on the game was far-reaching, extending beyond the NBA to influence players and coaches around the world. As news of his health concerns continued to spread, many began to reflect on Popovich's incredible journey. Here was a man who had been at the top of his game for decades, a man whose name was synonymous with winning. But even legends like Popovich have to confront the inevitable challenges of aging, and this was a stark reminder that time waits for no one.